On the record. There we go, that's recording. So, I know that here again it's been a while, but I've been trying to do some research and getting things going to where we're not dealing with just being a talking head again. Been a lot of things been going on here. They've got the internet fixed, about fiber optics in. Hopefully this thing's going to run a little smoother. I'm trying to record a video again through this tape, so we're going to try to upload a file to the YouTube channel, see if we can get some of these things working together a little more streamlined like they're supposed to be. This amendment thing with the Constitution and stuff's coming up here in the next election in August for the state of Missouri. These are the things that I'm really wanting to focus on today. I've got on the internet, finally found the actual resolutions for the state of Missouri of what it is that they're going to be voting on. I've got the fourth, what they're calling the Fourth Amendment and the Fifth Amendment. I've got the actual documents here in front of me. The other one that is a proposal on the taxes for the Conservation Department and those things. This is something that's already in place. It's just a matter of extending it another 10 years. So it will probably be the last thing we spend any time on. Probably going to do several of these podcasts because I'm just going to go down through these things. I'm going to try really hard not to give you my opinions because I am not trying to make you believe what I believe, or, you know, this propaganda machine that we've got going on in the United States here is absolutely repulsing me. And this is the whole point of this podcast, is because I believe in free and fair elections, which one of these amendments is dealing with. I believe that people are intelligent enough to make up their own mind if they get the truth. Problem that we have in this country right now is there's so much propaganda that's going across the airwaves that is based on nothing but fallacy and lies. And unfortunately, most of us do not take the time to educate ourselves to what it is that we need to know in facts instead of emotional frenzies and fairy tales for these people with an agenda trying to sway us into believing what it is we think we should believe. I've been on the internet reading some of this stuff on Facebook and these different comments to these, going back and forth to this. And frankly, most of what I am seeing on those things is being regurgitated out of the propaganda machine. That's all it is. So I'm hoping those of you that are listening to my podcast will take a neutral perspective and just take the time to read these resolutions. Now, you can do what I did if you got the time to get on the internet and fiddle around and find these things and actually get them printed off. It's not as easy as what I think it should be. I think they should be very accessible to the public, and read them for yourself, because I cannot stress enough that most of the information that's being put out here is nowhere near the truth. Whether you're for it or against it, either way, both sides of these spectrums are equally guilty for trying to manipulate the minds of men. So here again on this True Gospel Church website, it's The True Gospel Church is the website where you can find the links to these podcasts. If you're listening to my voice for the very first time, appreciate it if you just go out and check out those things. You can find the page that we have on Facebook, which is Our Present State versus History, which is where we are right now. This podcast with the same name, Our Present State versus History, is primarily put out on the Spreaker platform, but it's found on Spotify and some of the other platforms. It's kind of hard to get to, trying to maneuver through their systems if you don't have the exact wording of the titles and things. So if you go to thetruegospelchurch.org, you'll find our website, and there's some other True Gospel churches out there. So our website is brown. It's a real simple thing. It's got my bio on it. It's got all kinds of links to things like the University of Christian Studies and Seminaries, where Dr. Guy and Sister Kathy have built over the years a magnificent college for people who want to further their education. It's a Christian-based school. It's top-notch as far as I'm concerned. The National Center for Constitutional Study, there's a link there to those folks where you can get unbiased constitutional study material if you want to sharpen your skills about our Constitution and how it was put together and why the Founding Fathers did what they did. It doesn't have every detail in it, but I promise you it's got enough in there that'll, if you're curious about those things, it'll spark you to do your own digging and research to find out what the truth is. There are so many things that's been propagated out here in our media, if you will, that are untrue. It's crazy. And some of it, I have to clarify that because, some of it's not just out and out lies. It's just the way they word things. They purposely try to deceive people if they only read on the surface their thinking processes, the way they do their headlines, the way they do their phrasing, their wording. We have one major news broadcast out there that refuses to call President Trump the President of the United States. They refer to him as Mr. Trump all the time. They never refer to him as the President of the United States. As far as I'm concerned, that's treason. But they purposely sway all of their writings and everything they put in print to the agenda that they have, trying to push it to. In fact, the articles that they write in their paper and in their news broadcastings a lot of times are the exact, almost verbatim word copies of articles that we find in the Al Jazeera news outlet. That's a Middle Eastern outlet that's completely controlled by the Muslims and anti-Christian, anti-Jew philosophies and anti-West information they put out, and it's one of our major news outlets in this. So if you're not doing your own due diligence to find out what the truth is, these machines are very skilled at manipulating the minds of men. This is the thing that we have to, as Americans, wake up to and realize. This is not about a political, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican. It's not about that. It's about what is right and what is not right. It's a simple thing as the truth and the facts. And so I wanted to start this out with some facts that I got 6 facts that I just felt like the Lord gave me to put down here that I'm probably going to reiterate at every one of these broadcasts wherever I break them up and split them. We have a time constraint here. We're just going to record some of this. We're going to deal with the 5th Amendment that they're trying to put on the Missouri ballot, or trying to pass for the changing of our Constitution in the state of Missouri that's coming up in August. I'm going to focus on that one first, and I'm just going to do this thing, and then I'll break it up. So it's probably not going to make one segment, and I realize that it's dry stuff. It's hard to sit down and listen to something for hours at a time, but it's necessary, okay? And some of these things these are just facts, okay? This is not Democrat, Republican, right, left, whatever. These are just facts that most part our founding fathers really expected the mass or the base of our society to have a pretty firm grasp of understanding of. They're just simple facts, okay? One of them is the USA is a republic, not a democracy. That's just a fact. A pure democracy is mob rule, and it's a popularity contest. That's a fact. The word minority is a numeral word, and it has absolutely nothing to do with race. That's just a simple fact. We've turned that into a racial word, and it's not a racial word. It's dealing with a numeral number according to a subject matter. Okay, we have a majority, we have a minority, period. That's a fact. The founding fathers spoke of an educated people. This was not just applied to reading and writing and math, but they expected the people to be educated in the workings of government, in how politics works, how business and economics work. When they said a moral, educated people, when they used the word educated, they incorporated everything into that aspect, not just math and reading, but how the things and how our nation, how our tax codes, how our government and everything operates. Most people in our society today do not understand that. They don't have a basic understanding of how those things all work. This is a problem. A fourth fact is it is only an educated individual who will resist the emotional frenzy of a majority when it is necessary. That's a fact. It's only people that understand and have a basic truth of understanding of what is actually the most important thing when you get into an emotional frenzy of a majority democracy that will stand up against it and say, wait a minute, this is not right. Most won't. Most don't in our society today. This is a problem. It is only an educated individual. Well, that's what I just wrote. The next one is, if elections are not open and protected from outside influences, the people can never know for certain what is fact and what is fiction. That's just a fact. If we allow the outside influences come into our election processes and we don't secure them and keep them private and secure, but yet open to the people to where anybody can run and anybody can speak their ideas, and the people that are directly involved with whatever the subject matter is that's going on, then we can never come to with certainty what's truth and what's not truth, because we have this propaganda machine going. It's what we have going on right now in our society today. Most don't even try to determine what's fact and what's fiction in today's world. And morality is not just loose sex. It is the conviction to do the right thing simply because it is the right thing and not necessarily the best thing for the individual. That's morality. Most won't do that. This is the breakdown in our society today. These are the things that our founding fathers based upon our Constitution, and these are the things that they said if we did not maintain that our Constitution would fail, our country would fail, and we would be taken back into bondage and slavery, basically. Slavery to what? Slavery to money. I mean, today, what's the Bible say? The Bible says that the borrower is slave to the lender. This is the basic rule of our society today. We have most people that they are slave to the government because we have so many things that we've allowed to get out of kilter in our country, and putting things back into the proper order that they were set up to begin with is going to be painful. Nobody is saying to restore these things or to correct this path that we're on. It's going to be easy, because it's not. It's going to take a price. And the question is, are we a moral people? Are we going to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do for the future? Maybe not for us right now. Or are we going to just continue on looking out for our own self-centered motives and for our own things that we want to do? And so these are just some facts that I just sat down this morning and it's like, Lord, how do we get this going? And you know, the facts are the facts. We can't change them. And this is part of the problem with our whole system that we have going on out here, is we've decided that we don't like the facts, so we're going to come up with our own truth as to what we've decided to be right, and then we're going to run with that, and we're convincing ourselves of a lie. But you know, it doesn't matter. You can call an automobile a rock all day long, but it's still going to be an automobile. It's not going to become a rock. Or you can call a rock, a loaf of bread all day long, and it's still going to be a rock. You can convince yourself that it's not a rock, but it's still a rock. And this is a problem we've had in our country, and we have too many people that have decided to base their opinions and make their comments based on what they're hearing on the internet, or what's Henry that they work with is telling them, or what these people are saying, instead of finding out what the absolute truth is and making a conscious decision on their own merit for their own understanding. And so with that, I'm going to get into this Fifth Amendment, which is actually, according to the paperwork, it's called the Resolution number 173 and 74 from the House Joint 103rd General Assembly, okay? So that is the documentations listings that you'll find in the actual governmental offices, I guess, in the records, you will say. It's resolution number 173 and 74 of the 103rd General Assembly of 2026. So I'm just going to do a lot of reading on these things. I'm not going to try and sway you. I'm going to try really hard not to tell you what I think personally about some of these things. Now, there's some things that we're probably going to clarify as facts, as wording in different aspects. But this entire resolution here, which is known as Amendment 5, is the one that is dealing with the changing of the income tax. But you see, some of the propaganda that's going is they're not mentioning anything about the actual effect that it is going to have, not only on property tax, but personal property tax and other local taxes in general jurisdictions within the state of Missouri for county by county as they see fit. But these things are all connected to the reduction and elimination of the income tax and personal property tax. They're not even mentioning that part. But as we go through this and read this, you're going to see that everything that has been declared out here in the public about the free reign to raise taxes and those things is not true. It's just simply not true. This document has taken all of those things into consideration, okay? So, here we go. This is a joint resolution. It's submitted to qualified voters of Missouri, an amendment repealing Section 4B and 26 of Article 10 of the Constitution of Missouri, and adopting two new sections in lieu thereof relating to taxation. So this whole thing is changing what is already in existence in those sections of our Constitution, okay? So it starts in, be it resolved by the House of Representatives, the Senate concluding therein, that at the next general election to be held in Missouri on Tuesday, next following the first Monday in November 26, or, not November 2026, or at the special election to be called by the governor for the purpose thereof, is hereby submitted to the qualified voters of the state for adoption or rejection the following amendment to Article 10, the Constitution of the State of Missouri. Section A, Section 4B, and 26, Article 10, the Constitution, are repealed and two new sections adopted in lieu thereof, to be known as Section 4B and 26, to this follows. Section 4B. 1. Enacting any law imposing a tax on or measured by income, the General Assembly may define income by reference to provisions of the law of the United States as they may be or become effective at any time from time to time, whether retrospective or prospective in their operation. The General Assembly shall in any such law set the rate or rates of such tax. The General Assembly may in so deferring income make an exception, addition, or modification to any provisions of the laws of the United States so referred to and for retrospective exceptions or modifications to these provisions which are retrospective. Notwithstanding any provision of this Constitution to be contrary to the General Assembly shall enact legislation to reduce and eliminate the state individual income tax by requiring a reduction to the top rate of the individual income tax based on revenue growth until such tax is eliminated. Upon the elimination of the individual income tax, the General Assembly shall be prohibited from enacting or proposing any state individual income tax. So what that's saying is they're going to basically, the tax that's already there, they're changing that so that they can say that they can change it, because right now they can't. And then they're going to start at the top of the income tax percentage and begin to reduce it down in increments according to how much money is revenue is increased by the increased taxes until that tax is gone and the budget stays the same. So any increase of taxes will be in direct proportion to the decrease of the money taken in by the income tax until it's zero. And once it's zero, the legislation will not have the power to enact an income tax again. So once it's gone, it's gone. So that means simply if they reduce the income tax by, say, 2%, and then they find out that they've got a shortfall in their budget because they reduced it too much, by law they won't be able to add a percent back to it to readjust it. So they'll have to find money somewhere else. So that means they'll compensate in the other taxes to bring that shortfall back up so that it's still at a balance. Makes sense. In 26, in order to prohibit the increase in the tax burden on the citizens of Missouri, state and local taxes and use taxes or any similar transaction-based tax shall not be expanded to impose taxes on any services or transactions that was not subject to sales tax or use similar transaction-based tax on January 1 of 2015. So what that says is they can't add taxes to anything that's not already cleared to be taxed from January 2015. So that paragraph right there tells you that all this, we're just going to go wild and tax everything. It can't be done because right there it says, I'm going to read it again, in order to prohibit the increase in the tax burden on the citizens of Missouri, the state and local and use taxes or any similar transaction-based tax shall not be expanded to impose taxes on any service or transaction that was not subject to sales or use similar transaction-based tax on January 1, 2015. Pretty clear. If it's not being taxed right now, they can't just go throw taxes on it. They've got to go through the same process they got to go through right now in order to add tax to it. Paragraph 2, or section 2. Notwithstanding any provisions of this Constitution to the contrary, including subsection 1 of this section, for the purpose of reducing and eliminating the state individual income tax and reducing local tax rates. That's important, that phrase, reducing local tax rates, state and local sales and use taxes, or any similar transaction-based tax may be expanded by legislation to impose taxes on transactions involving any goods and service. for the purpose of this section, the phrase for the purpose of reducing and eliminating the state individual income tax and reducing local tax rates with respect to legislation enacted by the General Assembly means that the legislation expressly states the General Assembly's findings that such legislation will directly lead to the reduction and elimination of state individual income tax as provided in subdivision 2 of this subsection and will directly or indirectly lead to the reduction of local tax rates as provided in subsection 3 of this section. That reduction of local taxes is personal property tax. Okay? So they're saying they have the right to raise taxes on any transition involving goods and services for the purpose of this section. And that's what everybody's using to propagate, saying, well, they're going to start taxing services and stuff. But you know what? If the service was not already approved to be taxed in January 1st of 2015, they can't raise taxes on it, can they? They have to take that to the vote of the people and say, should we tax this service? Should we tax this product? Should we tax this thing? Because it wasn't already approved for taxation in January 1 of 2015. However, as these tax income for income tax goes down and the budget is brought up, when the income tax starts to come down to the point to where they are still making the money, then they can start reducing the things like personal property tax and add and keep moving until all of those taxes have been eliminated. Section 2. Any expansion of sales and use tax base or increase to the sales and use tax enacted for the purpose of reducing and eliminating the state individual income tax and reducing local tax rates shall be offset in the same legislation by a reduction in the top rate of individual income and reduces such tax revenues, less refunds by any amount that is least substantially equal to revenues generated by the expansion of sales and use tax based or increased in the state sales and use tax rate. And if such legislation is enacted within 5 years of the effective date of this amendment, shall not be considered new annual revenue for the purposes of Section 18 of this article and shall be exempt from the provisions of Article 4, Section 30B and 30C and 30D of this Constitutional. So in other words, as these taxes are increased, and they come into the general fund to remove the income tax, they're not going to be considered new revenue, so they can't say, well, this is new money, we can proportion it to a different project. It all has to go to the purpose of eliminating the income tax and personal taxes in the local taxes. Well, yeah, the local tax rates that they're referring to here, which includes personal property tax. Okay, so they can't just take that money and say, well, we're going to spend it over here and now we're going to increase more taxes because we got to eliminate this. And they've got 5 years to bring that income tax down to zero. 5 years. So it's going to be a gradual process. Notwithstanding any provision of this Constitution to be contrary beginning 12 months from the effective date or legislation in which the General Assembly expands the sales and use tax based percent to subject 2 of this section. Any political subdivision that imposes a sales or use tax shall, in the manner provided by law, enact by the General Assembly, make a one-time adjustment to one or more of the following rates of tax imposed by the political subdivision to reduce the amount of revenue generated by the amount that is substantially equal to 97% of the additional revenue produced by any expansion of the sales and use tax base authorized